Okay, go ahead, Dart.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Conservation Advisory Council, the January 5th meeting 2022. Happy New Year to everyone, and let's start off with a roll call.
I see Ellen Daviero.
Here.
Ashok Ramasubramanian. Miki Weiserholt. And Chairman Strayer.
Great. Laura, you might want to remind everybody in the town board room to turn on their mics. We had a hard time hearing.
You have yours on, Ashok?
Yeah.
The green light should glow. Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. Okay, we have some minutes that we need to approve. Those are the November 3rd, 2021 minutes. Does anyone on the board have any comments or corrections before we move to approve them?
No, I didn't see anything that needed to be corrected myself.
Okay, Aisha?
No comments.
Okay, I didn't really see anything either. Do we want to approve the minutes in this meeting, or do we want to wait till we have more members?
Well, right now there's 6 appointed members and 4 of them are here, so I think that's
We can do it.
Is a quorum. Yeah, you can do it.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
So I move that we adopt the minutes for November 3rd, 2021 meeting. All in favor, or do I have a second?
I can second it.
Okay, great. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, for privilege of the floor, we have Ray Thornton. He has sent a letter to the council, and Laura put it in a packet and sent it to us this afternoon. And Roy, the floor is yours. We'll
Thank
just
you.
start off stating your name and your address, and from
Okay.
then on you can speak.
Roy Thornton, 1337 Regent Street. Thank you for the privilege of the floor. That letter was signed by more than 25 Niskuna residents and birders. And we're thankful for the modified mowing schedule as it occurred last summer. The big portion of the capped landfill was left unmowed from fairly early in the summer until parts of it even now haven't been completely mowed. And we also thank to the CAC for starting that low mow initiative. We hope that the mowing schedules can continue to be adapted to benefit grassland birds and pollinators. The Hudson Mohawk Bird Club has also signed on. Their executive committee voted to support this initiative. Also, Nick Klemzak, he's executive director of the Schenectady County Soil and Water Conservation District out on Hetchville Town Road, is also in support of these initiatives and would like to help if he can. Many of you know that I've continued to advocate for at least 10 years for modifying those mowing practices at Blatning Park. I've made presentations to the Highway Department and the CAC on the need for these habitats and the suitability of capped landfills for those habitats. The main thing being that they have to keep the brush off, which means that they have to be mowed often enough to do that. If you wish, I would be happy to make another presentation about grassland birds and pollinators to the new members of the CAC and how those populations of grassland birds and pollinators are stressed and in need of additional habitat. Then some information. If part of your low mow initiative involves seeding with wildflower mixes, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, part of the Department of Agriculture, has a no-till seed drill available for rent at $12 an acre, and delivery is no charge. You need a 60 horse and preferably an 80 horse tractor to pull it. But that would make a way of planting large swaths of wildflowers at the new Lomo Initiative area. You can get seeds from the Ernst Seed Company. They've been developing mixtures that, well, in cooperation with the Xerces Society, which is a society for the benefit of pollinators. Both the Ernst Seed Company and the Xerces Society are advocates and sources of information on developing and sustaining pollinator habitat. The Schenectady County Soil and Water Conservation District buys seed from Page Seed, and I can provide you links to those two organizations if you need them. I also noted in one of the minutes of the Highway Department meeting that repairs are needed to the landfill cap. I don't know if that would be on your list or not. But if those involved filling, grading, reseeding, a good option would be to reseed with mixtures tailored for pollinators and ground nesting birds. For information on and guidance on mowing times, heights, methods, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Habitat Conservation Unit, and the Five Rivers Environmental Education Center are possible sources of that kind of information. We, the co-signers of that letter, hope that the Lomo Initiative proves successful and that the modified mowing begun in 2021 on the capped landfill can be continued. I would be pleased to be of further help if you need it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think providing those links for the seed companies and perhaps, Laura, we should consider this tiller. This might really allow us to jumpstart getting that seeded.
Will do.
And the other thing I'd like to share with you, and maybe Ashok, you want to tell Roy, when we had Jim come visit us, we walked the Blatnick area that you're talking about, and he pointed out a lot of different birds. Ashok, you want to tell Roy a little bit? I think it'd be good to share that.
Sure, Chairman Strayer. So what, Roy, what Chairman Strayer is talking about is our natural resources inventory, the NRI project, whose aim is to catalog the town's natural resources. And
right.
We had a consultant, you must have seen my emails about the project. We've had a consultant come in, and one of the areas we surveyed in the summer was the Blatnick Park area, and we actually saw a meadowlark and a bobolink during that specific day. I believe it was in June. So that's going on, and we will likely pretty soon start the NRI process formally, and this is certainly something that an area to be considered for our survey.
Right, you had kept me fairly well informed on that, so I thank you.
Yeah, it was very impressive to walk through the field with this consultant, because there's a diversity there that to the casual, uneducated eye, you sort of walk over it and you don't see it, but when you're there with a naturalist, it's quite diverse and quite a resource. So yeah, definitely, we're glad that you've garnered up the support for Lomo. Thank you.
As an aside, I have been maintaining the Bluebird Trail. It seemed to be falling into disrepair about 2 years ago. So I have made a few Bluebird houses and remounted some, rescued some from the bushes, and enlisted Bob Unick, a Niskayuna resident and licensed bird bander. And he went around with me several times this summer looking in the boxes and banding the bluebirds and the uh, tree swallows that had nested in those boxes. And he's a supporter of this initiative, along with the Hudson Mohawk Bird Club, which he's a member of.
Great.
Laura, do you know the status of the of what the highway department has for the schedule of mowing on Blatnick Park? Like Roy mentioned, like last year it didn't happen, but I'm not sure if it's official policy or anything like that. And we had talked about putting some signage on to address the concerns of people, who may think that it's neglect, whereas we are explicitly advocating for habitat.
Yeah, that's the only thing really that's left on the Lomo initiative that we have to do is to get those signs up. And there's no really hold up except for ordering them and installing them. I know Ellen had been working with Not, and then I reached out to Ray because those are kind of fairly standard signs that he can order as well. But I believe neither party has actually fully ordered them yet. But putting those signs up is the last step to finalizing that Lomo, except if we could get a hold of that seeding machine. I mean, that's the first I've heard of it. That would be very helpful because I think when that grass grows long, it's going to look scraggly. So if we can get something in there that's a little bit softer, that will look really good.
Does does the low mow as it's currently envisioned, does it cover the land cap, the landfill cap that Roy's talking about, or is it restricted to the golf course thingy?
Currently is restricted to the golf course area.
Okay. So then what's the status of the landfill cap
Well,
and its mowing?
so I'm just paraphrasing what Roy is saying. He felt like the mowing that they did on the landfill cap this year was much better, and I think he wants to see that practice continue into the next year, but it isn't formalized in our Lomo initiative.
Okay.
Is that a possibility?
Well, so I don't know if you guys remember, but when Rosemary was the kind of committee chair for the highway, parks, and programs, we met with her and Ray, and we had talked about whether we could do the landfill cap or we could do the golf course. And at the time, they really wanted us to stick to the golf course because of the issues that they had for mowing in the cap. I'm just paraphrasing my memory of the conversation. And so I think we had specifically requested the cap, and they asked for us to stay over in the golf club area. It doesn't mean that you can't ask again, but we did ask when we was first setting up the Lomo initiative, and they preferred that we stay over by the golf course. I'm always okay asking again.
Laura, what we could do is we could ask them if what they did last summer was the normal or the mowing that they would do going forward. I mean, I think we should ask them again, but at the very least, if they can stick to the same schedule that they had used last year, that would probably be appropriate.
I'm very supportive of that. And if they're like, yeah, that did end up not being as terrible, Roy, I think it'd be easier to fold it into the Lomo initiative and then put the same signs up over there. But we'd have to understand why they didn't mow it the same this year and if we can get them to do it that way next year. And then third step would be let's make it a designated Lomo area and put the same signs up.
Go for it.
So I guess, Roy, it would make sense if you continue to engage the highway department, in a respectful manner and basically advocate for the continuation of what they did last year.
I had that planned for tomorrow morning.
Excellent.
Good.
So the only thing I just want to make sure is that, this is Ellen, sorry, is that they know what they did last year. Do you know what I mean? Right? So, because I know that, when we went to plants, so, the plant, we spoke to the highway department and we had asked them not to mow between the fence and the plants. and it got mowed at least twice between those plants and the fence. So I just want to make sure that when we say we want you to do what you did last year, that we're specific about what it is exactly they did last year that we want them to repeat. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
that makes sense.
Okay, Roy, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
That's it.
Okay, does anybody else on the committee care to make any more comments or questions? Ask any more questions?
So this is Ellen again. I just really want to say that I would love it if we could get that tiller with those seeds. That would just be would be lovely. So
I
yeah.
will get the details on that.
That's great. Okay, let's move on then to the environmental assessment form referral. And tonight we're going to be discussing the EAF 2021-7, which is 1356 Balltown Road. And as the committee may recall, this is the subdivision that we've talked about for the last couple meetings. The last proposal was 20 townhouses. The developer has now resubmitted a new proposal or new plot plan. And Laura, is the developer here to talk to us tonight, or?
Yeah, there's 3 members in the audience on the subject.
Okay. So Laura, why don't you put up the map, and then we could basically have them come up and just give us a brief overview of the changes they made and why they made the changes.
Oops, sorry. Hold on. Oh, wait, it's not in your packet. Hold on. I got to do the other screen share. Hold on. Sorry. I was just trying to bring up the memo too, because we can look at how the memo's changed, but I'm having a hard time finding the Word file of it. But I'll put the drawing up for now.
Yeah.
Right here. Okay. Here. So I sent this to you guys in the email, but it's not in your packet. It was in the follow-up email.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, we're good to go if you want to.
Yes, hi. This is Dave Ingles representing the applicant. The applicant is Discuna BR Holding Company, LLC. Since December 1st, the date of the last meeting, we took into consideration trying to reduce the density of the project. That was in response to the meeting and then the subsequent memo. What we did is the buildings 9, 10, and building 11, 12, basically 11, 12 was eliminated from the project site. That's the internal area that would be closest to the WRGB. That had 2 buildings and 4 units. That was reduced to a single building of 2 units. That eliminated quite a few variances in that area relative to front yards and side yard setbacks. Also allowed us to enlarge the stormwater management area and consolidate the stormwater management area closer to units 9 and 10. We also had a substantial reduction in variances from the previous 73 down to 54 variances. We also reduced some variances over at buildings 17 and 18, the building in the corner closest to the Van Antwerp Village Apartments. So the open space now totals, there was a typo on the map. The total open space area totals 1.4 acres. That still does include the stormwater management area between or behind 9 and 10, but we moved the forebay and we consolidated that stormwater area substantially. Again, that will be final designed as we move forward, but it has been consolidated. So we've had a substantial reduction in density, substantial reduction in variances, increase in the open space, reduction in the stormwater management areas, which allows additional buffers and more undisturbed areas within those open space or within the open space. Subsequent to the December 1st meeting, we submitted the updated variance application to for both boards, the planning board and this board, as well as the ZBA, updated the table of variances, new exhibits, and updated the sketch plan we're looking at currently. And we also included a project narrative with that.
Great. I have a couple questions, if I may ask you. We are looking at basically 3 areas for the water management. There's a wet swale, actually 4. There's a forebay, a bioretention area, and then there's a stormwater management pond. And since the open space sort of includes those areas, I'd just like you to sort of talk about what those areas are going to look like. Are they going to be cleared? Are they going to be fenced in? Will they have standing water in them, or will they only have water in them when we have a rain event?
Sure.
Just a high level. I know you haven't designed it completely yet, but
Sure. The principal area is the area in blue, which is in the main 1 acre open space area. Beginning down at just south of units 9 and 10 toward the intersection where the satellite parking is. That's going to take a majority of the central area, basically the northern half and then a fair amount of the central area, to a forebay, which is nothing more than just a grassed area that will have some water in it, some standing water in it, the forebay, and then that will drain into a bioretention area, which is the long linear area behind 9 and 10. That's basically a glorified rain garden, if you want to think of it as that. So that will be a mulched area with some plantings that will be dry. And then that would overflow into the larger area, which would be purely for storage and attenuation of stormwater. That would be a dry area as well. After rainstorms, it would drain dry through the culverts that we show on the plan. The other ones are more linear swales, grass ditches, if you want to call them that. Basically, we have the areas in yellow, which are, as Laura's pointing to, those would be just linear perimeter ditches, grass swales.
And given this configuration, Laura, maybe you can answer this because this is probably a town code issue, is would the town require the stormwater storage area to be fenced in? I know that there's several developments where there is a fence around such a feature. Is that?
Well, so the old former superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, Rich, required the fencing if there was standing water around the pools because there was an intake and we felt like there was a conflict with state code that there could be drowning. But we don't require fencing if it drains and dries. So like in 1769 Union Street has a fairly substantial stormwater management area that isn't fenced in. If it's meant to retain water and hold standing water more than 2 feet, it's fenced. If it's supposed to dry, I don't think it's required to be fenced.
So you're talking about the area that's in front of ShopRite Plaza?
That is a stormwater area Yeah, that one's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would that be similar to what we have here?
So I mean, is this the one in front of ShopRite? If you're not familiar, Dave, it's where the monument sign is,
Mhm.
and there's like a dip down. It's
Yep.
all grass, and then it dips back up.
Yeah, the majority of the stormwater features will be dry, other than during storm events. So, as we go through the final process with the planning board, we can definitely look at that. But I would say the majority of what we're looking at here would not require fencing.
Okay.
Is it have to be mowed, or can you plant like trees and stuff in it?
The bioretention area behind the units, that's basically a sand and mulch media
Mhm.
with specific plantings to absorb nutrients. That area ponds for a brief period of time, like 6 inches of water, and then drains through the sand. So it's really a filter practice. So I don't think you want to alter that. That area should be maintained as it's designed.
Mhm.
The larger area is really just a holding basin, like we talked about, just a grassed area. I guess you could put some trees in there. Typically, it's just a grass basin.
Because it has to be mowed.
It should be maintained, right? Because there will be an outlet structure and a culvert coming out of the southern end. So, what you don't want to have happen is trees growing up and then impacting outlet devices and culverts and things like that. But nothing saying you couldn't do something around the perimeter of that might be applicable.
Like trees on the perimeter. Are you allowed to use different grass mixes so they could be more pollinator friendly?
We could look at something like that. Sure. And a lot of that area will be maintained now with the increase in the open space and the consolidation of some of our stormwater features. You can see there's a fair amount of tree buffer being maintained along the northerly boundary, and then about a half acre of area between the central area and then buildings or unit 17. So that should all be maintained as forested buffer.
Do any other members of the committee have questions?
Yes, please. Could you comment on the, if I total the acreage of the open space that is not enclosed in the blue boundary, the stormwater. So I'm having 0.9 plus 0.1 and a 0.3. The total's 1.3. So what kind of open space are we talking about? Are they going to be disturbed? Could you comment on that, please?
Sure. Actually, it's a typo on the plan. Lot number 20, the main open space area to the north, sandwiched between the WRGB and the interior road. That's 1 acre. We took a look at calculating that before I came over tonight. So
Wait,
that
hold on. Lot number 20? Are we looking at different things?
Yeah, it's 20.
Yes, this area here.
Okay.
That's 1 acre, slightly over an acre. It's like 44,000 square feet. An
Okay.
acre is 43,560. So that's just over an acre. And then
Hey, Laura, could you mark that out on the plan because, okay, thanks.
correct.
And then the blue is, would have to be cleared and made into stormwater. And then this area over here where it has the red, I think it's would be retained here.
Correct.
And so your estimate of the area of open space that's retained on that 20-acre parcel, you said is a little bit less than half an acre?
That's my guesstimate. If that whole acre, that whole site is 1 acre, so it might be a little bit less than half an acre.
It's like 23 or 0.4 plus 0.7 and 0.8 acres of actual undisturbed open space.
That's a fair assessment. About half.
Sorry, I didn't have my microphone on. Could you guys hear me? I think it's probably between 0.7 and 0.8 acres of undisturbed open space.
Yeah, if we said 50%, that would be 0.7, half of 1.4.
Yeah. I'm adding the 0.3 and the 0.1 and the 0.4 together.
And there'll also be some retention of, if we're talking about tree vegetation, tree buffer. If you look at, for instance, lots 17 and 18, there's a fair amount of area outside the red. That red is a guesstimate on limits of disturbance. So you can see there's a large buffer all the way around 17 and 18. I think our red line went a little bit awry on 9 and 10. There's some buffer that can be saved there too. So we can preserve a lot of forested area and vegetated area as part of the development plan and grading plan as we move forward.
Well, do you again, I'm sorry, it's Edison, do you again have including those areas around units 17, 18, 9 and 10, etc. Do you have a guesstimate on, right now it stands at 0.65, 0.7. If you include those, how
That's-
much would it come to?
Yeah, we were saying about 0.6 or 0.7 for the open space parcels, those 3 parcels. I don't know what it is on the balance of the site, but I would think you'd probably be able to have about doubling that by the time we were done with buffers.
Thank you. And I also want to second Laura's point about, so long as we are clearing stuff and, it needs to be grass, if there is scope to add pollinator friendly grasses and shrubs. You just heard Roy Thornton talk about it in the privilege of the floor.
Mhm.
Or trees around the perimeter of this culvert area. Now, anything that will promote biodiversity and conservation aspects would be quite helpful.
Sure. We can look at that as we get a little further into the detailed design.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
So Dart, I could either bring it up on the screen or I can kind of read it from my phone because of the way I have to share the screen.
Oh, going through. I have one more question. But yeah, depending on how you think it would be, I think maybe bringing it up on the screen when we get to it, I think that would be helpful. The comment, you're talking about the memo,
The
right?
memo, yeah.
I just have one other question for the on the development here. One of the objectives that we're trying to do in this unit is have conductivity for pedestrians. And I think putting the sidewalk in along VA is an excellent benefit for the town. The question I have is, would it be possible to provide pedestrian access along the internal roads? I know the roads are going to be private, but it looks like there's a fairly good conductivity benefit if people could walk from, let's say, VA over to Balltown through the development. We're having trouble hearing the response.
They're conferring.
Yeah, hi, this is Dave.
Dave, yeah, sorry.
The engineer for the applicant. We were just discussing it. They're really
Okay.
not looking to encourage public thoroughfare through the development. Since this will be private, there'll be an HOA maintaining the interior roads.
I'm not.
The roads definitely would accommodate, the residents that could definitely get out to and these aren't going to be, as we show in the traffic study, there was limited transportation or vehicle trips. So there's no reason why the residents could not walk on the interior roads, get out to the sidewalk on Balltown, and likewise the new connection. The applicants are committing to a sizable investment on the sidewalks, extending them from CVS all the way up to and past their site frontage to the Van Antwerp Village Apartments.
Yeah.
So I think
No, I
the
wasn't
roads would
suggesting,
accommodate
I
it.
wasn't suggesting vehicles at all. I was suggesting, if people, residents wanted to walk through to go from VA to Balltown. But I'm not suggesting this become a vehicle cut through at all.
So I think what Dart's getting at is right now people walk through the Van Antwerp Village when they're walking from Van Antwerp to ShopRite Plaza, and occasionally Van Antwerp Village will kick people off of walking through it. And I guess the question is, these are private roads?
Mhm.
Is the intent, would the intent still be to allow pedestrians to freely walk along the roads and bicycles? Or there's going to be gated? I mean, is that the question that you're getting at, right, Dart?
Yes, yeah,
He's not
exactly.
saying build a sidewalk along the internal roads. I don't think it's necessary, but how can that work for connectivity?
Hi, this is Bob Miller, one of the.
You're tall, so you're gonna have to read, or they won't
sorry,
be able to hear you.
one of the owners here.
Yeah.
So, look, we can look at anything, but as we sit here, it's not something, as we're spitballing, as it's thrown to us right now, that I think we're necessarily really interested in. We're providing pedestrian activity for people outside this project by building the sidewalks on VA and Balltown, as we've discussed. With respect to internal circulation of residents, every resident has a sidewalk that's being built from their front door to the sidewalks that we're building along the streets. So a resident can, can they see me if I walk over there? Can they hear me?
No, you can grab the microphone off that and take it with you, though.
Yeah, I think we can hear you, but if you
So-
want to grab the microphone, that's
So
fine.
all I want to say was that, if somebody from one of these units along Balltown wants to go over here, they're probably not going to come out their front door and do this, right? They're going to walk through here. If somebody in these units wants to go this way, they're going to come out the front door and go, or they're not. They're going to go out the back. I mean, you can't really control where those people are necessarily going to go, because everybody has their own habits. But we're providing them the opportunity to make those decisions. And what Dave said with respect to the traffic counts internally, the traffic counts that are going to be generated from this are very, very minor. And so for anybody inside the project that wants to maneuver around on the private drive, there's not going to be an issue with traffic. So then that brings up the question of what I think you're asking: what about people outside of the project? And I'm not necessarily sure that we want to encourage kids on bikes cutting through, or pedestrians walking through. I'm not sure where that would take us. I don't envision gates. That's not what we're thinking here. It will be a private drive with a homeowners association, but no private gates. People would be free to do it. I don't think anybody in the homeowners association is going to start policing and say, hey, get out of here. I mean, if you have groups of teenagers coming from school and walking through, maybe that becomes an issue. But I don't think it's something we want to encourage. But, that being said, we can certainly talk about it.
Yeah, I'll just be honest with you. We have instances, like even in Van Antwerp Village, where generally speaking, people are allowed to walk through. But what becomes an issue is that they pick and choose who they let through, and it becomes an equity issue. So like knowing what the rules are for the road, and, like maybe stating up front that, pedestrians and bicycles, as long as they're behaving themselves, are welcome to use the road. Maybe having that clarity so that it doesn't become a divisive thing to let some people walk down that road and others not, is something that we run into. When you're like, the HOA won't police itself, they do, but they typically police themselves in a way that isn't great for the community.
I mean, personally, I don't know how Van Antwerp Village is doing it, but me personally, to me, it's a behavior thing. in generally speaking, an elderly person walking through there is not going to necessarily be as destructive to property as a group of teenage boys. Just generally speaking, if I'm going to pick one group that may have the ability to be more destructive to something, I'm going to say it's the younger boys.
Yeah.
So to me, it's an age thing, but I don't know what their policy is over there. We certainly haven't discussed this. We haven't drafted any homeowners association policy. That's all got to be looked at. So placing signage out front to say something to that effect, if you act inappropriately, you're not permitted on the premises. I don't know. At the end of the day, that is private property. So
I think that the reason why many teenagers or many young people go through the Van Antwerp Village is because there is a good destination like ShopRite
Yeah.
or Starbucks or Dollar Shop. There is a attractive destination out there. But if I look at, where this project is located, I don't really see attractive destination on either side. So that's how I kind of view. I don't think this place will attract many young people getting through.
I agree with what you're saying. So, right, the people are going to take the path of least resistance. Let's assume that nobody's getting thrown out. If it's a straight line to cut through Van Antwerp Village to get to where you want to go, which is what you're saying, to get to the Starbucks or to get over to that retail project, that's where they're going to go. So when you look at this, you say, what are they going to do that? Where are they going? Like, where are they going when they do this? I get that. I understand. I agree with what you're saying. It's something we can look at. I'm just not.
But I think allowing pedestrians and bicycles through there as long as they're following conduct would be helpful for connectivity, because I think you may see some kids going through there. I don't know because of the upward bend, but it is a way for that neighborhood to walk to Van Antwerp. Right now they currently go down and across, but it may, because you can cut through the field and stuff if you go down Alton.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were
So
saying.
I can zoom out a little. But like these neighborhoods, and they may not do it because you do this northern jog to get yourself over to Balltown Road.
Mhm.
But like this could be an easier way for them to cross Balltown Road and get to the schools through Alton. It may not.
To make that cross up there instead of down at Van Antwerp and Balltown by the CVS.
A lot of people don't use that crossing, even though it's a signed and buttoned crosswalk. It seems to be a very difficult crossing for people. We've talked to the state about it multiple times. Most people, I think, cross at CVS. I'm just summarizing the chairman's comments on that, but
Yeah, that's, if you look at that intersection between VA and Balltown, it's problematic. It's been problematic for a long time within the town.
I'd also like to chime in and support what the chairman said, please. We do have a town-wide priority towards increasing connectivity. And just to say this is private property, it's exclusive, nobody else is allowed inside. And the town recently established a racial equity task force. Just to say this is an exclusive neighborhood, everyone keep out, makes me averse.
Yeah, I'm not saying what we're saying is it's private, keep out. There's a difference between that. I'm not saying we're going to gate it, so it's private, keep out. So there's a difference between that and encouraging it. So I look around at all these other neighborhoods, certainly across the street, and there aren't sidewalks through there. There aren't, at least I don't believe there are, the sidewalks across the street to the south to the neighborhood that Laura, you were bringing up, or across the street. But we are providing the sidewalks along the street. We are doing what was asked. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. We're certainly not saying, hey, exclusion, can't come in. That's not what we're saying.
And perhaps your point about signage would be an acceptable compromise, and say there are expected behavior and no loud noises, no damage, etc.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I don't know, this all may be a discussion over nothing, because maybe because of the destination and because of the jog, maybe people don't really use it.
Well, there is a school on Van Antwerp Road. The middle school is there.
Right.
and from going back to the chairman's point, for kids who live on the other side, it'll be nice for them to walk to school or bike to school
Sure.
and through your property.
Although, I mean, quite honestly, like Alton is the connection and people are going to take the shortest route. And so the majority of that neighborhood is probably going to take the sidewalk down Van Antwerp Road and cut through the CVS parking lot. But I think what we were trying to get at is not internal sidewalks. You probably don't need internal sidewalks because of the low level of traffic and the small width of the road, but just making sure that it wouldn't be disallowed for people to be walking through there.
Yeah, it's not our intent to do that. That's, I want to be clear about that. It's not our intent to say nobody's allowed to cut through here. Yeah, we're not gating, we're not. Yeah.
Okay, Laura, why don't we bring up the memo and we can sort of go through the memo.
What I'm gonna do? Do you want it, Chairman? Do you want me to try and edit it or bring it up and then I can type it up later? Is the question.
Whatever is easiest to facilitate
Okay,
the
it's
process
easiest
for
for me to bring
you.
it
If
up.
you want to do it later and send it out to the
Yes,
committee,
that would be the
that's
most helpful.
probably better.
So I'll bring up what we have and we can go through the points.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, sorry, hold on. There it is.
You probably want to make that a little
I might
bigger.
have zoom way in. Okay.
Yeah.
Even that is hard to read.
Laura, can you please say which page that document is in?
It's the last 2 pages of your packet.
The last two. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So at our last meeting, we took a vote and we were concerned that I think the main concerns that we discussed were that 20 dwelling units was beyond what would be allowed under an average density development, that we were okay with the variances that are related to the duplexes because we like the concept of the duplexes, but they asked the applicant to remove, well, the ZBA to look at working with the applicant to remove 1 to 2 buildings, to preserve the adequate and high quality open space, reduce the area variances, and more closely adhere to the average density development. So the specific recommendations were number 1 was to remove 1 to 2 buildings. So I don't know if you guys want to comment on that. They removed 1 building. I know in another note we asked for it to be 17 and 18. Oops, sorry. But I have some restrictions with this, but they did remove 1 building and shift the stormwater to the side, and it did preserve more open space.
Hey, Laura, why don't we just go through all of them and then what we can do is we can look at it
And then go back. Okay. So
and
that
go
was
back.
the first
Yeah,
one. The
everybody's
second one
familiar with.
was, well, the second one was no more than 16 to 17 units, and I believe you are now at 18, right? The third one was preserve the quality of open space by removing 1 to 2 buildings. The fourth one was we identified lots 19 and 20 as a good candidate to remove because the area is adjacent to the proposed stormwater in the Van Antwerp Village Forest area. They did identify that the townhome concepts provide walkability, a diversity of housing, and felt that variances for the shared property line were appropriate. I think that was in the beginning as well. But they wanted to reduce the remaining variances, and they also requested affordable housing, implementation of green energy concepts, solar power, EV charging stations, and ways to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from the development.
So I guess I would like to open the floor to the committee and we can sort of discuss this. Probably we don't necessarily have to go in order. We can perhaps go through maybe, it's looking at, like, for example, 2, we can talk about that one because that's probably, well, I don't want to put words in the committee's mouth, but why don't we look at 2 first?
2 is the reduction of variances. So I don't know if Dave, you can do this math in your head, but it was 53 variances when you removed the 20 area variances for the lot line. It's probably down to what now, like 35?
There's, let me pull up the variance table. There should be 18 side wall variances for the common wall, or 18 side setback variances. That shows up as the second table. So there's 18 units, so there'd be 18,
So 53 minus 18.
correct.
Does anybody do that in their head? I can't. Thank
So there's 35 additional variances. Most of those are related to lot width and area. Most of the areas are very close to the 9,000, 7,800, 73, 7,000 range, 8,000. So one of those is also, 2 of those variances are also related to the open space parcel. So really 20 variances associated with the sideline and in the open space. We did work hard at that, trying to reduce the variances as much as we could, and we think we have a good plan. The plan is in keeping with the 17 that was developed through a conventional plan layout. We listened to hopefully listened to what the CAC said and the planning board, and did reduce the units and the overall density, and try to maximize to the best of our ability, the open space.
Hey, Dave, could you talk a little bit about, and it's sort of related to the variances, but it's also sort of related to the open space, why you chose to keep the buildings 19 and, they're on the map, they're 17 and 18 there? If you just want to address the committee on that.
Yeah, I think either one was a candidate. We felt that there was less variances associated with 17 and 18, and there was also the ability to have continuity of the open space where the 9 and 10 is, and that allowed us to move the stormwater area toward that intersection as well. So we thought that was the better option, was to maximize open space adjacent to buildings 9 and 10, and consolidate the open space, and basically bring everything toward Balltown Road. And again, there's a fair amount of, when you look at 9 and 10, those lots are compliant with the zoning. 9 and 10, they're over 9,000 square feet. They're over 100. They're over 100 foot in depth, and they're 84 and 87 feet wide. So those lots are compliant now, and you can see there's a lot of not classified as open space, but there's definitely a fair amount of open space on those lots, 9 and 10. So we think that gives you a good continuum of open space and buffer all the way along WRGB, all the way to the buildings in 9 and 10. And then actually there's buffers between 9 and 10 that goes all the way around to the open space parcel. I believe it's 21 that's at the intersection of Van Antwerp and the new roadway.
Thank you.
So we could obviously reduce the numbers on this. Well, we would have to reduce the numbers on the memo. I guess the question is, with the reduction in variances, and them making the lots closer to the 9,000 square feet, do we want to change any of the language in that recommendation?
I think the question I might rephrase a little bit is, we had an objective of, reducing the number of housing to conserve open space and to reduce the number of variances needed. And I guess, does the committee feel that we've accomplished that goal, or have we not? I'm looking for a discussion here.
And,
So-
Chairman, perhaps you can start by sharing your thoughts first?
I think Ellen was gonna go.
Oh, sorry.
Let Ellen go.
Hi, I guess I would say that this is better than it was before. It might be a halfway point between what we really, what we would, we wanted one more gone than this, but it does meet a whole lot more. It's this vegetation back by 17 and 18 that is, I guess I would look at that area first. Just make sure that it was, is that by the wetlands back there?
Yeah, the open space area by lot 17. Is that what you're asking, Ellen?
Yeah, so I see, so 17 and 18, to the, I don't know, is that, towards the culvert and that open space. So that'll all be untouched. Is that correct?
Yeah, the area that is outlined in red is
Red? Okay.
Yeah, proposed
Okay.
to remain. And Dave was
Okay.
saying he could pull the line down on lot 9, although once it becomes private property, it's private property. But you can definitely
So you can pull the line down for the private property on 9 so that it's,
undisturbed there as well.
okay. Okay.
I think what Laura's saying is that, there's two times trees are taken down. One is during the development, and then the other one is the homeowner decides to take down trees because they own the property. It's the latter action that's harder to control.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think that this is a fairly good compromise.
Okay. Aisha, do you have any comments?
No comments.
Okay.
Are we, okay, well,
No, we're just talking about item 2. That's all. Miki, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that?
No, I don't.
No. Okay, Laura, why don't we go to item 1, and maybe if we go through that and discuss that, maybe we can sort of come to some sort of consensus on this.
Okay, so I think what 1 is really getting at is the number of units so that it compares to average density development and the quality of open space.
So just for clarification, the code as written would basically, they can build 17 single-family homes. So how does that play out? Are we meeting that?
Well, what we discussed before is that they don't qualify for an average density development.
No, I agree. Yeah, I realize that.
Um,
In spirit.
right. If they were qualifying for an average density development, they would be allowed 17 units. They went from 20 down to 18.
Okay.
But the buildings are consolidated as far as single family goes. I think the number of buildings is less, right? How many actual? buildings.
Yes, there's only 9 buildings.
There's 9
Two-
buildings
they're
and then 2
duplex.
units. Yeah. So when you're comparing it to the single family home that we looked at before, that's 17 homes spread out across the entire property. This is 9 buildings split into smaller parcels with 18 units.
Okay. I think the way I personally look at this is we wanted to get close to that particular requirement in spirit anyway, but I think the broader issue is, we wanted to preserve the open space as much as possible. And basically, if that retention area remains, usable during non-rainstorms, I'm talking about that big retention area, and is not fenced in, I think that is a sizable open space area that could potentially, give an open feel for the community. I don't know how others on the committee feel.
Dot, are you talking about the area that's, the stormwater management area, the area enclosed by the blue dotted lines?
The way I'm looking at this, Ashok, is the bioretention area probably cannot be repurposed just by what its purpose is for. I think my biggest concern here would be is if the pond, the stormwater management pond, which is basically just for retention, were fenced in, it would look very chopped up. If we can keep that unfenced, more in spirit of the, let's say, ShopRite Plaza out in front, I think that goes to a lot of keeping the open space open, so to speak. And it sounds like in talking with Dave, that seems like a reasonable goal to shoot for. And if I'm overstating it, please correct me, Dave.
Yeah, I just want to make sure when we go through the detailed process, so we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit. Again, that main area will be for attenuation, but as we clear and excavate that, there's wetlands in that area now that are not jurisdictional. So there may be some water in there, and then I think we're going to have some additional water quality treatment is what's required by DEC. So they may make us pond some water in at least a portion of that. So I wouldn't count that as a large, necessarily open recreational field. I think that would be overplaying it. So we don't want to make that statement.
Okay.
But again, we will preserve any and all vegetation wherever possible in that open space parcel, even surrounding the open space. And if there's any additional green plantings we can do to dress up that stormwater management area, we will do that. But contrasting that to the conventional plan, there is no requirement for open space. Right?
Right.
Or actually, there's a 10% requirement for open space, but
For
most
parkland.
people would find that this area would not be suitable for recreation, so that then they would pay their parkland fees. So this is a benefit over the conventional plan, regardless of the final tally of the open space acreage. I think we just need to do our best job with it in terms of preserving buffers wherever we can and limiting the disturbance as much as possible. And then where we have the stormwater management features, we'll limit those in terms of standing water and dress them up with as much green vegetation as we can, as discussed.
Okay.
One other thing I wanted to state, the density of the 18 units or the 9 buildings, that is consistent with what we discussed at the last planning board meeting as well, just to bring the two boards to consistency. The planning board did seem to be okay with that, where we're at with this plan, the 9 buildings and 18 units. And the initial paragraph actually recommends 1 to 2 buildings, so it wasn't real definite in terms of what the final tally would be. So again, we worked really hard to balance everything, balance the density, and come back with the best plan in terms of maximizing open space and limiting variances in density.
So Chairman, just because I know this is kind of difficult to get through each point and I can't write it out while we're writing,
no, that's fine.
what I would maybe recommend to the board to say yes or no to is like, we specifically identified lots 19 and 20 as a good candidate. They chose not to do them. I mean, is that the end of the world? We could take that out because they did remove a building. And then I agree, we do have the 1 to 2. I think that leaving something in there saying that we're trying to adhere as close to the average density development as possible is really important for precedence, because we don't want to allow duplexes to come in and have higher densities than what would be allowed in the zoning district.
Right.
Generally, even if we love this proposal, we have to be really careful with precedents. So I think keeping the adherence to the average density development should stay in there. But what I would probably do is swap some things out and then talk about how important it is to manage the quality of the open space and do buffering and planting and maybe different seeds is something I would suggest.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that tact. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a sense of where the board is on this, and
So I have to say that if you're the board, you're meaning us, are.
us, yes.
Okay, so I would say that, I agree that they didn't take, that, that they swapped out different buildings than what we anticipated. But that I'm grateful that that was a consent, that was something that did occur. And I'm always looking for more open space, and it seems that was alluded to that there might not be the recreation space that we had anticipated due to the fact of the extra wetlands in there. So I would just include that in the notes. And we haven't gotten to the part about any I'm again, I'm all for, solar panels and ways to make these, more efficient and, less, and more eco-friendly.
So we'll get to that in a second. I guess where I'm sort of trying to get a feeling of where we are is if we take the first part of this, we had basically identified lots 19 and 20. The developer has come back and basically gave us reasoning of why they kept those particular the building in that particular spot. And the question is have they really addressed this objective? And if they have, then I think, we can sort of change some of the points in here, or basically say that, this objective has been met. We're trying to adhere by not setting a precedent. We are trying to get open space. I might add that, we should work with the developer during the planning process to keep as much space open. And again, I don't necessarily think it has to be recreational grade. I just think it needs to have the feel of an open space. And then maybe those goals are met.
I want to talk a little bit about a point that's been alluded to before. So when I do we went through the math and we landed at something like 0.65 acres for areas that are outside the red boundary. And I would call that as quote unquote true open space, like guaranteed, not going to be disturbed. And that 0.65 seems to me a rather small number given the total land area under consideration. Now, you did mention that that you're going to like bring down the boundaries and so on, and I'd be more interested in what is feasible in bringing more areas outside the red boundary. Because as the chairman pointed out, once, even though it's not disturbed by construction, the homeowner can always decide to clear the forest in their backyard or side yard and plant it with lawns. That's entirely under their control. So I wouldn't classify that as quote unquote true open space. And the true open space, looking at and we've already discussed that the area enclosed by the blue boundary, the water management stuff, that's not true open space either, far from that. So in terms of actual open space, biodiversity, etc., I'm looking at a number of 0.65. That seems small to me.
Hey, Aisha, just a definition. When you talk about open space, are you talking about recreational space or are you talking about open space?
I'm talking about like
Natural space, I'm
forest
sorry.
and trees and natural spaces. Yes.
Well, one point I would like to make, if the applicant pursues the conventional plan, there would be zero open space as a definite. So again, we think we're trying to work with this board, the planning board, balancing all of the objectives, including the objectives of the applicant, in keeping with the conventional plan and the average density development. I think there's a lot of semantics in terms of how we're chopping up the open space. There's not 0.65 acres, there's 1.4 acres is what the open space tallies up to be.
Wait, I thought you just said there's a typo.
Various characteristics. If you look at the plan, it's very clear there's going to be substantial additional buffers maintained on this plan as part of our plan. There would be no reason to go above Unit 9 and clear the vegetation of the forest all the way to WRGB. That wouldn't be beneficial to the applicant or the homeowner. Why would you want to be open up to the WRGB parking lot?
Well, in that case, what is preventing you from simply reclassifying that as open space in this diagram?
Then the plan would need more variances. You would have to have additional variances. Lot 9 is as large as it is to meet the 9,000 square feet. We were charged with reducing the variances to the maximum extent by both this board and the planning board before we go to the ZBA. So as I state, we're juggling all of these variables and requests, and again, we feel that we came back with a very legitimate plan showing a fair amount of open space in the spirit of working with all the boards.
Thank you.
So can I just ask for just one small clarification, and how the precedent that that is trying not to be set? I had to step away for a minute, so I apologize if this was I was driving home. So I just want to make clear the precedent that that we're concerned about. How much area or how much space is that? That we're far, how off are we from that?
Yeah, I think my concern on that, Ellen, was that basically we feel that townhouses is appropriate in this area of the town, and it's R1. And so variances have to be granted regardless of the size of the project or anything. So basically, if you're an R2, you can't have a townhouse with a shared floor. So we have 5 acres here, plus or minus some, and it's pretty substantial. And the developer wants to put in townhouses. So the question is why is this piece of property unique as opposed to a single lot in Old Niskayuna that somebody would want to put a townhouse in? And there's 2 reasons I think why that is different. First of all, this is a sizable plot of land. It's not a single lot. And you would like to do an average density type development here to preserve open space. However, that's not really available to the applicant due to the way the zoning code is written. So in my mind, if we can hold the developer to the spirit of the average density, quote, rules, which would apply to a much bigger space, think of Kelt's Farm,
Right,
then we're sort of making this we're applying a principle to this large piece of land and therefore negating like an individual homeowner saying, I have an extra lot, I want a townhouse, let's say an old Niska unit, because it doesn't fit the same argument as this piece of property.
right. So I guess my question is how far off are we with the decision that they have made with the reduction of that one building? How far are we, between that and where we were before? Because we had asked, I thought that when we asked them to remove those two buildings, that we were going to get that would get us within that density.
It's close. They have a single family home plot that shows 17 units.
Right.
They went from 20 to 18 units. But obviously, when there's duplexes, you would either go to 16 or 18, which is why we had the 1 to 2. You could either round up or round down.
Okay. All right. So we're 1 unit basically away because we're at 18. Is that
Well, it could be 18 or it could be 16.
okay.
I mean, in a sense, the way I look at it is, if it's 17 units and you're doing duplexes, I guess from the way I'm looking at it is, I think we're close enough. That's my opinion on this, to not set a precedent.
Okay, so I agree as well. I feel like there was I feel like there was enough of a compromise. It's certainly not perfect, but it was we all took one step forward. I don't,
Okay.
that's only me though.
So, Ashok, what's your view on this? And Nikki, we haven't heard. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I also agree.
Okay.
I'm most certainly not going to block consensus. I agree as well.
Okay. So, Laura, turning this back to this memo, just on one, what were you looking for the committee to do on this?
Well, so I guess that was kind of what I was summarizing is I think that my recommendation to you would be to leave in the stuff that says we're trying to get to the average density development. But I think that like removing the things about the specific lots, because I think it's okay that they switched their lots out, leaving,
Okay.
like taking that out, taking out, that the density is too high.
Okay.
We're okay with it. We could say we recognize the reduction. And then, I know like for number 2, it says all of the other variances should be adhered to, but I looked at the table they did, and I think it would be very difficult to have townhomes and still have all of the 9,000 square foot variances and stuff adhered to. I think the biggest one, besides the shared lots, and Dave, correct me, I'm wrong, either the frontage or the square footage, but that's very tied into the shared lot line. I think
Yeah.
the ones that we were really worried about was the side yard
Yeah.
setbacks between the buildings, which there's next to none now, right? And maybe the
So
lot coverage.
what I would suggest that we do for 2 is we can sort of leave two as written, but just put a additional sentence at the end and just say the applicant has appropriately satisfied the CAC's goal in this manner.
Okay. Yep, I can do that.
I mean, if the committee feels that way, we could do that. What I would suggest we do for one is, like you said, take out lots 19 and 20. That's specific there. If we go back and say that indicated that 17 single-family lots would fill this lot, and we feel that, go through that and just sort of change that and say that the applicant has reduced from 20 dwelling units to 18, which is more in line with the spirit of average density.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
could do that.
And then like for C, where it says that the CAC identified the 1 acre open space on this plan, as stormwater management, which they felt did not meet the intent of the open space, like we could say, they've added some open space to the right. Like we're still very concerned that the open space needs to be of quality and that there'll be additional plantings.
Yep.
But that is more of a site plan concern than than this was originally a recommendation to the zoning board because we were concerned about the density.
Yeah, the thing I would put though is I think if the planning board works with the applicant to keep the space open for wildlife
Yeah, without fences and things whenever
without
it can be
fences
done.
and stuff, if we have to fence part of it, that's okay. But I think we generally have a history in the town of just putting these chain link fences all the way around the whole entire area without regard to maximizing the natural space. So, and I think we're sort of meeting that objective.
Okay. So
Why don't we go to 3 now? Does anybody else have anything they want to add on this? And Laura, you're going to send this out for comments, right?
well, I think you need to vote on it so that I can prepare it, vote on the concepts. I can send it out
Okay.
to you guys and then you can make sure the language is correct based on what you thought you were voting on. And I
Okay.
apologize,
And why
it's
don't we-
cumbersome, but it's tough tonight.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add to 1?
I don't think so. So does that, because of the variance for 9, the side plot, in order for that to meet the density, does that mean that line cannot be brought in closer for the buffer?
He can bring that line, the clearing line, you can bring that onto lot 9.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, then I'm good with I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
So now let's go to 3 and sort of discuss that.
So I remember, Dave, when you were here the first time you presented, I think you had said that you weren't opposed to green energy, adding solar power. I can't remember if you said you were going to prep the garages for EV charging stations. I think sometimes garages are wired at 120 and it should be 240, or I'm not a builder, but stuff like that so that they can be EV ready. But I don't think we talked about affordable housing. That's the only thing I could see in that point that we weren't able to bring up with them before.
Sure. Yeah, so obviously what we're doing here is building a product, right? In its simplest form, we're building a product. And so when it doesn't matter what you're building, you're looking at cost, how much is it going to cost, and market. What does the market pay for that? So we've got this, we're trying to fit in there, make sure we're building something that the market will support. We're wholly on board as a company, philosophically, with building to the future, building to where the market is going. At some point in the not too distant future, I think everybody's going to have an EV vehicle. They're going to have it. So the concept of wiring and putting in 220 in the garage and having it all set up and ready to go, from our standpoint and a marketing standpoint, I think that makes a lot of sense. Actually installing it, I don't know that makes sense right now.
Oh, no, just having the wiring.
Right, because I mean,
Yeah.
somebody may come in and they say, well, I don't need that.
They don't want
Why am I
that.
paying for that?
Yeah.
The same thing goes for solar. I'm not exactly sure how that works. We're definitely going to explore it. We're definitely open to talking about it. When I last looked at it, there was a contract that you had to sign for 20 years. You were locking in. That may be something that the market doesn't necessarily want. Individuals may want it. So it's something that I think in the process, if we're pre-leasing, we're certainly open. We'll do anything with respect to that. Some of these other items, green energy concepts, just as a general concept, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, philosophically, we're energy efficient HVAC. Where's it all going? How's it all going to work? We're definitely looking to do that because philosophically we think it's the right thing, but we also think that's where the market's going. So what I said, when you try to price things out, cost and market, what does the market support? Well, now there's a little bit of a mixed signal when you're saying, well, how does affordable housing fit into that? Because that's at the other end. That's where, affordable housing, when you're now selling at something less than what maybe the market would support. So how do you put those two things together where you're spending that additional money, but then you're locked into a smaller price on a sale? So that one is a little more problematic for me. I'm not sure what we can do there, because our plan is to do market housing, and so I'm not sure how the affordable housing component would fit into that.
Well, one thing we talked about before is, and I think you guys were here, maybe it was Dave, was that there's living space all on one floor so that these can be aging in place things where people who live in Niskayuna can downsize, and then they have walkability to the Niskayuna downtown. And Chairman, you can just jump in here, but keeping the goal in mind that, like, in some ways, townhomes are a lot more environmental. We've talked about this before with Celts because they have smaller yards, and yards are, like, very bad for the environment.
Yeah.
And
No, I agree. I mean, I look at this, I mean, there's numerous needs for the town of Niskayuna, and primarily, we have single-family homes and a lot of older stock around the town center. We do have apartments, but they're far away from the town center, and they don't really provide accessibility. So when I look at affordable housing, I think it has multiple components here. One would be, yes, we want to make the houses affordable to, families that maybe can't afford to live in this unit, and that's one way of looking at it. And that's appropriate for the town to do. Another way I look at affordable housing is what you said, Laura, aging in place and not being able to maybe go upstairs and downstairs. Maybe you can't drive anymore. And an affordable option for you would be is to live near a store in downtown, central Niskayuna, and maybe that keeps you out of assisted living home and keeps you in home care, and that's much more affordable. So, I think there's a lot of ways to look at it. So, I think it gets down to, what the goals of this project were and, where people feel on that.
So Chairman, can I piggyback on that for a second?
Yes, you can.
Because I agree with everything you're saying about the latter component there regarding affordability. So we've done floor plans for these two separate types of units that we have. Those floor plans have first floor master suites. That's where the living space is. There are bonus bedrooms, I call them bonus bedrooms upstairs, but the concept in both these two different types of units are first floor master suites. All your living space is down there. If you have guests, they can go up there. If you want to use one of the bedrooms upstairs as a study, you can do that. So that age in place concept is something that we really agree with, as we agree with the walkability concept. So as a company, we've built apartments. We've built apartments in Clifton Park. We've built apartments down in Slinglands. Those are located next to shopping districts. We're not interested in building something out in the middle of a green field on Route 9 in the town of Half Moon, where you have to get in your car to do everything. We like this piece of property. We think it's a unique piece of property. It's a special piece of property in this town, primarily because of its location and the ability to provide walkability. Go to the south, I mean, right there, you've got CVS. So for somebody that's elderly that needs to pick up the prescriptions or get their sundries or small grocery items, they go there. You can walk. You can walk right to the north to the shopping center up there, get your coffee, do your banking. So we wholeheartedly agree with the if what the definition of affordability is aging in place and walkability, we agree.
Yeah, that's one definition.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, that's where my head's at. I think one thing that, you did say earlier, Dave, was about solar panels. If you make that an option for the homeowners when they buy it, would that be a possibility that they could choose that as an option if they're building the house?
We can definitely make that as an option. Quite frankly, I'm not sure how it works, but obviously during construction, it's going to, when the trusses are up and the roof is it's easier to install whatever mechanical systems and wiring needs to get from the roof down to the transformer or electrical panel, whatever, however it works. Absolutely, we can make that as an option.
Yeah,
Okay.
and another thing to think about is if you're writing the HOA, which I would imagine that you would do and then turn it over, would be to make sure they're not prohibited.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think also offering it as an option on the homes as they're being built is a great idea.
Yeah, I like that idea as well.
Okay. So how do we feel about item 3?
I feel like it can stay the same. Why would you change it? It's
Yeah,
good to discuss it with the, it's not really relevant to the zoning board. That's more to the planning board.
Yeah. Now, Laura, on this list, this is just a memo to the boards, or is this a memo to the ZBA specifically?
Well, this was a memo to the ZBA specifically. It was copied to the planning board, and I think it was one of the main reasons the planning board put the project on pause with the agreement of the applicant to look at the removal of a building. So
I guess the question I'm asking then is, we had a fairly lengthy discussion about walkability and, trying to get some sort of understanding of pedestrian traffic. Is this an appropriate place to put that, or is it going to muddy the waters?
yes, Chairman, Miki's leaving, and Miki, do you have like 2 seconds? Because if you don't take a vote, you won't be able to take a vote.
Okay.
She's
Then
trying to
let's-
sneak out of the room. I theoretically add that in later, but you have to take a vote.
Okay. So we're voting to modify the memo as discussed, and that we will see the memo before it gets issued to the planning board
And zoning.
or the ZBA. Is that fair, Laura?
Yeah, based on the concepts that were just discussed,
Yep.
that are, I'll put in the minutes.
Do you need someone to second it?
Yeah.
I second it.
Okay. All those that agree with the proposal or the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, it looks like the motion carries.
Okay, and Chairman, if I was hearing you right, potentially add some thing in 3, clarifying the importance of the walkability and the aging in place.
Yeah, I think it's important to put it in the memo and get it in. I don't want to create another issue though for the ZBA, and that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, it's not really that pertinent to the ZBA. I may be able to break that out into a planning board memo instead.
Okay.
I'll send it to you guys.
Yep. Okay. I think does anybody else have any other comments on this project?
I think the only last thing that I just want to say is is the lawns and the amount of lawn that we have, the type of, and the type of plants that we, get chosen to be put, to put in for landscaping, just native, that kind of thing. But I don't know if that comes later.
Yeah, I mean, the developers are sitting here, so it's always good to say. Lawns are considered biological wastelands if you're really looking at it. So the more diverse you can make them, the better.
And even grasses that are, better, sustainable for this area. And, I mean, I'm for no pesticide. I mean, I have a green lawn and I don't have pesticides, and, you can have lovely plants, not a problem. And then I would just say, I know solar shingles are expensive, but, look at them as well. Let's start being the people that make a difference.
Okay. Well, if we have no more questions for the applicant, I'd just like to thank you, Dave, for going through this project with us. I think it was extremely helpful for the committee.
Yes, thank you. We would like to thank the board. We've worked very hard to, as we stated, to juggle all of our requests, and hopefully we have a positive project for both the applicant and the town.
Good. Okay, moving on, discussion items. Laura, do we have any discussion items?
Well, no, we don't.
Okay. Reports then. Why don't we go through the reports?
Yeah, we don't have to take too long on these. I just wanted to touch on that the town received the Climate Smart Communities grant that they applied for. So that's very exciting. What that entails is a community greenhouse gas inventory and a government greenhouse gas inventory, and then a government climate action plan. So it totals 50,000, 25,000 is for the grant. Thanks, guys. And that is being run through the Climate Smart Community Task Force, but obviously they're a subgroup originally created out of the CAC, and you guys are all, I think, very involved in that. So I wanted to make sure you knew that we received that. It was very exciting news, and that'll be a good task for them to be moving forward on in 2022.
That's great. Good.
Um,
Asia, do you want to give us a brief update on the NRI?
Yeah,
He's
Laura,
just
can
waiting
you
on me.
sign it?
I think he just needs me to sign the contract. I'm happy with it. It was sent.
Okay,
We just
good.
need to sign it and get him going.
Excellent.
And can you sign it
Yes.
soonish?
Yes. I
Uh,
can.
Would you like pestering phone
Yes.
calls and
Yes.
and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it only takes a couple seconds, but a phone call always helps for sure.
Okay, so so like what happens when you actually sign? Because it's, I take it it's an ink signature, so we mail it to him, or does
No, I just email it to him. Electronic is allowable legally. It changed, I don't know, a couple years ago.
So you have like a JPEG of your sign that you'll just
Mhm.
stick it in there.
And then I can email it to him. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll like wait for an email for you like tomorrow.
Yeah,
or-
tomorrow is reasonable.
Okay.
And
All right.
then I think like the next steps would be probably the committee meets again and then starts working away on that contract, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that that I've asked Jim to work with us is like really make it be a community project and explain to us what we as a community can do.
Mhm.
You know, we are paying him $2,000 to do things that we cannot do,
But we can,
but there's a bunch of things that we can do as a community. And I, you know, from the very beginning, I've always said like, I'd like this to be a project where the community comes together and learns about open space and its preservation.
yeah.
Great. Okay, pesticide outreach update. Ellen, do you have anything for us?
Not really.
Okay.
It's kind of the quiet time of year for those. And
Yeah.
the LOMO we talked about a little bit at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
Just a good reminder, we've got to get the signs installed. But we'll get there.
Good. And
How-
then finally, the historic preservation code. Laura, do you want to give us an update of where that stands?
Yeah, I was gonna take this off the agenda, but I really don't want to. I think we really need, if we can, as a committee or whoever, I know we're very busy, but reinvigorate this, because there's some interest in a couple historic homes in the town of Niskuna right now. And I think the interest is really to demolish them. And the point of this code is to make it codified that there needs to be a pause on the demolishment of historic homes. There's nothing I can do if somebody wants to take down these historic homes. So I left it on the agenda, and I guess I'm just making a plea to you guys or whoever to just see if we can keep this moving forward and try and get it the beginning of 2022 going
Would
again.
it help, Laura, if we sent just a brief memo to the board saying that we feel that this is a priority and we need to move forward with it?
Yeah, like to the planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. We can just put that, like Clark and I can even just put it under our reports for the planning board. But yeah, just letting them know that we talked about it here and that it definitely is becoming very relevant right now.
Okay, good. Okay, we're through our agenda.
Yay.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
I didn't hear it first, but
Oh, I first it.
I'm just kidding. I second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Just thanks everybody for the discussion. I think we went through a lot of discussion with this new development. And I think, it's better for it. So I'm appreciative.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Looking forward to a good
Thank you.
2022.